Promise as strong as a spell. I'll never tell.
Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. As you can see, my husband Brendan is joining us again today. Say hi to the people.
How you doing?
So a few days ago, I made a post on several of my different platforms asking for questions from non-Mormons, never Mormons. Well, I thought this time it would be fun to answer questions specifically from people who were never members of the church. And at the time I was like, I know that like the majority of my audience are ex-Mormons, so there's probably not going to be that many questions. So I went ahead and posted that prompt on all of my platforms thinking I'll get like a few, and there were hundreds of questions. So we're definitely not going to be able to answer all of them, which is something I did not anticipate. So we'll answer as many as we can, and then if you guys like this video and you want to see another one, maybe we could do a part 2. I was raised Catholic. My wife was raised Mormon. One aspect of Mormonism that is different is the thing called testimony. Nobody in the Catholic sphere was ever asked to give a testimony. I found the aspect of bearing your testimony really odd and cultish. Did you ever consider that an odd practice in your youth?
No, because we grew up just seeing it all the time, but as I got older, like teenager, I did start to think it was really kind of lame in the back of my mind. I started to notice a lot of like really cringy stuff, people going up and like including stories that are so like pointless and irrelevant
Yeah.
and minute that they like, and then they just stretch it to fit this like, I don't know, it had to have been God, and I found my car keys, and I knew that it was God, and just...
I would say that it never stood out to me as odd or cultish, probably, again, just because, like, we did that once a month for my entire life, starting as a baby.
Yeah.
And they had us bearing our testimonies, like, from the moment we're able to form sentences, they would bring you up there and whisper in your ear what you should say.
Which is cultish in itself.
Yeah, like looking back, absolutely, especially the way that they handle it with children. But at the time, it didn't seem weird at all because it was just so everyday, normal thing that we always did. I'm not Mormon, and before living in Utah, I had very little knowledge about this religion/cult. I'm Mexican, I work in a little company, and all my coworkers are Mormons. On company lunch meetings, they pray. I don't see it right, but well, I respect their beliefs. Your videos have helped me to understand them a little better. I'm astonished by their very strong beliefs. Some of my colleagues had answered some questions about the Mormon church, but they don't say anything about the secrets they do in the temple. I'm just curious about what does the green apron mean and what do the handshakes represent?
The green apron is literally nothing more than just like the fig leaf that Adam and Eve covered themselves with when God came and found they were naked. Handshakes is a whole rabbit hole in itself because they're actually just ripped straight from masonry, and I'm not sure what they represent in masonry.
I don't know.
But in Mormonism, it's basically like each one is like, one represents, it's like the sign of the nail, which represents Christ being crucified, and then the sure sign of the nail. We can demonstrate these if... The sure sign of the nail represents, like, because they had to use another nail in his forearm to keep him from falling when he was crucified, and, like, it's just pretty, like, basic stuff, really.
Yeah.
There's no, like, super deep meaning to any of it.
I guess, like, the deep meaning would be that only people who are initiated know them.
They're required to like get into the highest degree of heaven.
Yeah.
You have to know the secret handshakes, but anybody could just go Google them and find them because of masonry. So
yeah,
it's really not that secret. They like to act like
I mean, it was secret.
It was
because
secret.
In the past,
sacred.
like, you didn't have the internet, so...
Yeah, and it was very whitewashed for us, so we weren't aware of it, but, like, anybody could find it.
Yeah, I hope that's a good enough answer.
Yeah.
It's honestly the kind of thing where, like, I mean, you go to do this temple ceremony, and they teach you about all these things, and you're expecting it to be, like, deeper than it ends up being.
Some mind-blowing, like, fresh religious juiciness.
And then it's just like, oh.
And then it's just like you're just in
handshakes.
church.
Okay. How did the modesty standards and wearing garments impact your self-esteem? Did you feel like you could look the way you wanted for the most part, or was it a struggle? Oh my gosh, it was such a struggle, at least for me. There were so many things that, you know, were in style that I felt like I could not, well, I definitely could not wear because my parents wouldn't let me. It was hard because it felt like within the church, it's always like you need to dress up and look attractive for men, but also you can't look too attractive because then you're a whore. It was so confusing because like there are apostles that have said things like, oh, like, we don't want to see your bony knees and shoulder blades. Like, that's like so ugly and hideous. And then there was other apostles that are like, put on a little makeup, put on some lipstick every now and again. And you get these messages of being like, yeah, you need to look good, but don't look too good. Like, and it's
micromanagement.
It was really hard to have good self-esteem in an environment like that, where it's constantly like, you should be beautiful, you should look beautiful, we want to look beautiful for the men, but if you look too beautiful, then you become a temptation. So don't be too beautiful, don't look too good. You don't want to, you know, attract the wrong kind of attention. And I don't know, it was really frustrating. And then after going through the temple and wearing garments, there were so many clothes I had that I feel like were very modest, but they would show garments, and so I had to get rid of them anyway. Like maybe a sweater that came out like this far, but your garments came like right here, and it's like, that's still a modest sweater,
yeah,
but you
by
can't
normal
have your
standards.
garments like sticking out, so it wasn't good enough. You probably didn't have the same experience.
Not as much, because I mean the only thing for me would have been like tank tops when I was growing up, and like even after I started wearing garments, I was like pretty opposed to them. I just didn't think they looked that good. Didn't think they'd look good on me. That's definitely changed since we left, because I love wearing them now. You might have had a different
opinion if, you know, you'd grown up wearing them.
Yeah. They, I mean, it's nice to like wear things that breathe a lot more.
Yeah.
And not wear, I mean, the garments are just stuffy. That's the main thing. As far as modesty, it didn't really affect me.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you wish that you could have experienced during your childhood that you either couldn't or felt you couldn't participate in due to the church?
Parties in high school and stuff. I didn't go to any of those.
Me neither. Honestly, my parents were just really, really strict, partly because of the Mormonism.
Same.
But they were like super worried about me staying out late. Like, I'm pretty sure my curfew was 10 p.m. until I was like 18, and I had it like, it was gonna stay 10 p.m. and my parents and I had a huge fight over it, and I got it till 11. That's really early for somebody that's an adult, you know? And it's not like I would have even been all that rebellious. I just not getting to wear the type of clothes that I wanted to wear, the, you know, things that were fashionable that I wanted to wear but couldn't because it was immodest and it wasn't allowed, or not seeing a lot of movies because they were rated R and it wasn't okay.
Not seeing movies was a big one, but probably the real biggest one for me was I had buddies, or a buddy, that would invite me to like death metal shows all the time in high school, and I couldn't go to any of them.
Why are there no crosses?
Because we like to think of the living Christ, not the dead Christ, is what I was always told.
Yep. Honestly, it just kind of seemed like a way for Mormons to try to set themselves apart.
Yeah.
Like, we're better than regular Christians because we don't...
There was a lot of that vibe that went around, to be honest.
But then, like, everybody wears a CTR ring.
Yeah,
that's like
so
their symbol.
what's the difference, really?
Why do Mormons worship Joseph Smith rather than Jesus? If you had a real answer, like, technically, they don't worship him, but he is the prophet of the restoration. So he's really important within Mormonism because he restored the church to the world.
It's like borderline worship, though, because like we'd always be like, oh no, we don't do that. But then there's like a whole
praise to the man
to commune with Jehovah. It's like a particular song we'd sing that's like all in worship to him, basically.
Yeah. The whole, like, praise to the man.
Pictures of him everywhere.
There's so many pictures of him. There's statues of him. Like, yeah, it's a lot about Joseph Smith. I can see why somebody would think that they actually worship him. But if you were to ask a Mormon, they'd be like, oh, no.
No, we worship Jesus.
Do you really have secret ceremonies and secret handshakes? Yes, absolutely. You can Google them. They're, filmed.
YouTube it.
Yeah.
It's a wild ride.
We showed you the one.
So there's one where you just put your hand flat like that, and then I grab around it like that.
And then the knuckles.
Your
between the knuckles.
In between and your first knuckle. And I think that's it.
And then just this one.
Yeah.
Those are the secret handshakes. Now you can all get into heaven.
Yep.
So you left the Mormon church. So do you have a relationship with God the Christ? Just curious if you've accepted Christ and are indwelled by Holy Spirit. That's what's important. No.
No. It's all the same.
No. No. How do Mormons view other non-LDS Christians? Are they going to heaven or hell, and why? And do they try to convert them often? They view other religions as like...
lesser.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if you asked a Mormon, they would be like, we think they have pieces of the truth, but we have the entire truth.
Yeah. So you're not a bad person. You're not necessarily going to hell. From being on a mission, we would tell people of other religions that, like, you'll probably still get into one of the degrees of heaven if you're trying to live righteously and everything.
Yeah.
But you can't make it into the highest degree of heaven because you have to be baptized by the correct authority, which is only available in the Mormon church.
Because we are very special. On average, how many active Mormons today do you think are aware of things like the CES letter, Mormon Stories podcast, and the Exmo corner of the internet? For those unaware, how many of them do you think would be open to checking that stuff out as opposed to dismissing it as biased anti-church material from the devil? On average, how many are aware? That's hard to say because even the people who are aware, like, are probably not going to say that they are. Like, they're not going to talk about it in church.
They like to, I mean, it's very hush-hush.
Yeah.
Any anti-Mormon anything is very hush-hush.
Right, and like you wouldn't talk about it at church because that would invite the spirit of the devil and the spirit of contention.
People would start talking about you, though. Like, if you brought it up to somebody, they would talk, and then people would already have, like, a view of you as, like,
right. Which
watch
is
out for that person.
No, like, nobody's really gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say how many people actually know about it. In my personal life, it seemed like hardly anybody did. Like, I absolutely didn't.
Yeah, I had no clue.
The bishop in our ward and his counselor that came to our house when we stopped going to church had no idea.
Had no clue.
My parents didn't know. Nobody in my immediate personal life knew anything about it.
I mean, I had friends and, like, random people on my mission that would, like, say a thing or two here and there, but it was always, like, really some of the really outlandish stuff that I was like, there's no way that's true, and I'd, like, just blow it off. But a lot of Mormons, I think, are also very, like, willfully ignorant of, like, that stuff. Like, if it comes up...
Yeah.
If it comes up, it's very, like, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm just going to keep going my way and follow the truth.
I mean, we left the church almost 5 years ago, and even in that time, like, TikTok has come about, like, short videos on the internet, like reels and shorts and stuff, have become extremely popular very quickly, and ex-Mormon TikTok blew up. And so now versus when we left, even though it hasn't been that long, I do feel like probably more people have heard about that kind of stuff than ever, and the church has been, like, super careful about trying to put out a lot of stuff being like, you can't trust everything you read on the internet, don't trust people on the internet, only trust us. How many of them do you think would be open to checking that stuff out as opposed to dismissing it?
Not very many would be open to it.
Yeah, it really just depends on the person, but for the most part, I think probably like 85 to 90% of them are going to be the type that have, like, they don't even want to look into it at all.
No, they wouldn't even want, like, if this the second you brought it up, they'd be like, nope, I don't
fingers in their ears, head in the sand, la 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 la. I just wonder how pissed off you guys are for giving them your money.
I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, it was pretty upsetting. Especially because when we were members, we were, like, barely scraping by, and so the money we gave them, like, literally was, I mean, we were on food stamps, we were on WIC, we were barely able to feed our children and pay our bills, and we're buying, like...
And we'd been going to the bishop to get help for medical bill payment, and they would only take care of, like, some things.
So yeah, like, it's really frustrating to look back on that and be like, we were giving 10% of our income, and then choosing, like, should we buy bread or milk this week? Mormons seem to have a canned answer to questions. When they give their testimony, is it personal to each individual, or is it a memorized statement that they recite?
A little bit of both.
It's, I would say, mostly an answer that they recite, because you're going to get the same basic things in every single one because they teach you how to do it. Like I said, they whisper it in your ear from the time you're like 3.
I would like to bear my testimony.
I know the
church is true. I know Joseph Smith was a true prophet.
I love my family.
And then it's like,
I know I'll get married in the temple someday.
The only like change up is like insert some personal story this person had and how it ties into church.
Yeah, there's like an outline that you follow. And you kind of recite the same things. Like we said, I know the church is true. I know Joseph Smith's a prophet.
I know the
Whoever
Book of
the
Mormon's
current
true.
prophet is, I know Russell M. Nelson's a true prophet. Most of my family grew up Mormon, and some of them are still in the church, but my mom left when I was a baby, so I don't really know a lot about it other than a few experiences of going with relatives or the experiences of my other relatives. But I've always been so confused about endowments. Do you take endowments or do you get them removed? And what exactly are they? Everything I've ever heard about it is confusing and nobody seems to have a direct answer. An endowment is basically a promise. So you go to the temple, and when you go to an endowment session, or like they say, like take out your endowments, you go and do this temple session where you make these promises to God, and that's where you learn the secret handshakes to get into heaven, and you are now endowed.
And then it's basically just watching a movie about like the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And
the creation of the world. And then you learn about like
you basically make promises with handshakes and stuff to not be sexually deviant, to not, and it's very basic Ten Commandment-y type stuff.
And then to not tell anybody about what you've seen in the temple.
Yes, is one of them, so we're going to hell. Lots of people would say take out your endowments. I'd, at least growing up or like teenage years, it was very like, no, you don't say it that way. It's you receive your endowments. Unrespectful or disrespectful or something,
But people still say it, like, take out your endowments, receive your endowments. Anyway, I hope that kind of helps answer your question. It is kind of confusing, but basically, you're just going to the temple and making promises to God. That's basically what
literally all it is.
What was your secret name? Mine was Leah.
Eli.
Leah and Eli forever. I would like to know what your beliefs are now since you left the LDS church. Just curious. I would consider myself an agnostic atheist, basically meaning that I don't believe in a God, I don't believe in a higher power, but I also don't think that we can know everything, and I'm open to learning more about the world and about, you know, things as they come up. Like, I don't have a super strong, like, I will never believe in any of that. Like, I want to be open.
Same. Same.
Yeah. Is there pressure to go on a mission? When I ask Mormons, they say no. I don't believe them.
Yeah, that's a big fat lie. There is an insane amount of pressure to go on your mission.
He would know. He's a former missionary.
Yep. I felt very forced, even though could ask my parents and my siblings, and they would say, "Oh, no. It was never forced. They never forced anything on you." Yeah, I was the oldest. I was the oldest boy on both sides of the family. So I had lots of younger cousins who looked up to me, and I would get told that all the time. And when the mission was talked about, it was always when you go on a mission, and when you're on your mission, it wasn't if you go or if you decide to go. I never once was told, like, you don't have to go and that would be fine and we won't judge you. It's just...
Even if they had said that, it wouldn't have been true.
It's very, like, even in church and church classes, it's like,
when you go on a mission.
When you go on a mission,
Not
and
if
you want a beautiful wife, you have to go on a mission. Like, no one will want to marry you if you come back early or don't go. If you're a young man and you don't go, you're pretty much exiled if you don't go or come back early.
There's a ton of pressure.
Even missionaries, I've talked to some people or had friends, missionaries that came home for a completely legitimate reason, like they were deathly ill or injured or whatever and couldn't perform, and they still would pretty much be ostracized by friends and family because they came home early, which is just terrible.
Mormons would answer these questions a lot differently. Some of them they wouldn't answer at all because it's too sacred. But yeah, like, you're gonna get a different answer from a Mormon, of course. You're watching a video from ex-Mormons, so we have a little bit of a different perspective, but...
The truth.
On that one, I would absolutely say, like, there's a lot of pressure to go on missions.
Tons of pressure.
How do members really still believe it? With all the information out there, how do they avoid learning the truth, or do they choose to ignore it? It boggles my mind.
They choose to ignore it.
If they know about it,
For the
yeah,
most part.
they'll choose to ignore it. But a lot of it, I mean, I didn't know anything about it.
A lot of it is just blissful ignorance.
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen the movie Smallfoot, or if you've seen The Truman Show,
Oh my gosh.
that's the perfect
That's like-
illustration.
I've heard from a lot of ex-Mormons, like, you watch that movie and it's like, oh my gosh, like, it's exactly
You're
like that.
in a completely different reality. You're
Yes.
in this sheltered bubble, and
We should do a watch
people
through of that sometime.
basically start poking little holes in that bubble from the outside, and eventually it falls apart. I mean, unless the person is just so headstrong that
And there are a few like that.
that they, no matter what they see or hear, they're just going to keep going and keep giving their money
Yeah.
to the church.
I mean, there are people that I feel like could be presented with proof that the church was false and choose to continue believing and giving their money anyway.
So if you've watched anything about like Warren Jeffs and the FLDS, he came out and said that he was a false prophet, and his followers thought that he was just being
Like
tested
testing
and
them.
yeah.
Yep, that's Mormons would do the exact same thing.
You know,
There would be
if the
Mormons
prophet
that
came
would-
out tomorrow and was like, it's all bullcrap, we're pulling the wool over your eyes just to take your money and blah blah.
they'd be like, this is a test. We need to keep believing. In general, how has the break affected the kids? And then somebody else asked, yeah, I do wonder if it's hard for the kids in school if they go to one that's predominantly LDS. So we left the church when our oldest was 4.
Yeah, so they don't have
They don't remember
like, any
of
memory
it.
of it.
They have zero memory of the church. Thank God.
You're welcome, kids.
Yeah, they don't even remember that we ever were. I mean,
Their
there are a
school
lot
seems
of
pretty diverse.
Yeah, their school is pretty diverse. I mean, like the area we live in, there are a lot of LDS people, but not like overwhelmingly LDS. We live in Idaho, not Utah, and there's a lot of churches in our area. Like if you just drive around our area,
There's a lot
there
of
are so many
religions
different churches. Yeah,
here,
there's
though.
a lot of different religions. So I think they probably would still be a minority in that they come from a non-religious family.
Yep.
But not being Mormon is not that weird here.
No.
So how has it affected them? They're super lucky because they don't have to go to church and they don't remember going to church ever. How are you doing with finding purpose after Mormonism? I'm a recovering Christian perfectionist, and even though I'm happier and healthier and a better human, I still feel like I'm kind of floating through life. I miss the sense of personal significance and mission.
Enjoy life. That's the main thing. My purpose is to do things I enjoy, be with people I enjoy.
You enjoy me?
Well, duh. Don't overthink it. I think that, like, there's so much bullshit in the world and people overthink everything that, like, not to be rude, but, like, just do you and the rest. Like, enjoy yourself. Don't harm other people in your enjoyment, but enjoy yourself and do whatever the fuck you want. I'm a big fan of a band called Cattle Decapitation. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. There's some lyrics in one of their songs that's like the end of not their album that came out this year, but their previous album, Death Atlas. This connected with me and like hit home after leaving the church on a different level. It's like to be alive is to survive everything, to make do with anything until we die. To be alive is to squander everything, to stumble towards anything, to feel alive. That's like the truest part of life, is like just do what you want, do anything, do whatever to feel alive yourself.
We've been out of the church for almost 5 years now, and I feel like my journey of finding myself and like finding what my path in life is has like shifted just a little bit. Like at the beginning when we left the church, I was like, what do I do?
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's really beautiful, like leaving this religion that like so strictly from before you're even born has this path it's assigned to you,
forced into,
and you just have like that. You just have to do that. That's what is expected.
That's who you are.
Yeah, and I think it's really beautiful leading that and being able to, instead of being forced to have this purpose, you get to make your own path, find your own purpose, do what you want to do, and doing what makes you happy and what makes you feel fulfilled is so great, and it's so important.
And can be anything.
Yeah, And so, you know, for a long time I was just going for like that. What gives me purpose? What makes me happy? I'm just going to do that. And I think that that's like a really great way to do it. But I also can see like if you have a harder time like figuring out what that is for yourself, I would suggest, and I suggested this in like one of my latest videos too, but I would suggest looking into mindfulness, because I feel like there's a lot of really good techniques within mindfulness that can help you figure that out if you're having a hard time doing it on your own. Actually, let me give you a book recommendation since we're reading stuff off our phones now. Okay, I'll give you 2 different mindfulness book recommendations. Spirited by Candace Kumai, I thought was really, really great. And then The Mindful Day by Lori J. Cameron, which just goes over like all how to be mindful throughout your whole day from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. I've really been enjoying learning about mindfulness. And I feel like even though I already, before I started learning about that, like already had a purpose and already, you know, had figured out exactly what I want to do with my life and what makes me happy, adding mindfulness into it just made it that much easier to live my life the way I want and to do it in a way that is good for me, like mind, body, soul, and also good for the people around me. So there are still so many questions that we didn't answer. I'm really sorry if we didn't get to yours. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments and I can do a part 2. Once again, remember that if you watch the video all the way through to the end, or you like or leave a comment, those things make a really, really big difference in how many people get to see the video. So if you want to see a part 2, let me know in the comments. If you have any other questions, leave those in the comments as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for spending some time with us. Huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys are the best. And extra special thank you to Craig Call, Doug Davis, and Tans for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you guys would like to support the channel, there are links to do so in the description below, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Thumbnail.
You're keeping these promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell.
Yeah, I like you, that's for sure. Never have to close the door. Been